Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other like-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Hi, everyone. We've had a few Western Pennsylvania cryptid researchers as guests last fall. They're my friends and I want to support them. But they are also very motivated researchers, and they're finding evidence of Bigfoot and cryptids. The Greater Ohio Valley has produced some of the earliest airship documentation. If you are interested in both topics, there is a terrific conference coming up on April 26th near Butler, Pennsylvania. This is the annual B.O.R.U conference. You can find out more by going to the B.O.R.U.UFO.com website, and there's a hyphen between B.O.R.U and UFO, and spelled like on my shirt. Dan Hageman was a guest about this time last year to discuss last year's conference, and he's as well. He is also the producer of the prestigious conference. Joining him is MAXIM FUREK, who recently published the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, and Max will be speaking there as well. Max has numerous books on other local paranormal events, and his website is maximfurek.com. That's MAXIMFUREK.com. Okay, so let's bring them on. There they are. How are you two tonight?
I'm good.
Yeah, great. Okay. Mark, thanks for the invite on your podcast, Nightlight. I'm, just excited to be here and honored. And Daniel, nice to meet you in person, I guess, or virtually. But I'm excited about your 18th annual Butler Paranormal Conference on April the 26th, and looking forward to meeting the folks and talking about Bigfoot. So again, thank you for the invitation. Should be a great program.
Thank you, Mark, for having us, and Maxim. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast, and yeah, we're gearing up for the 18th annual Butler Paranormal Conference, and it's hard to believe that we're going into our 18th year. When I started this, I never dreamt that it would grow like it has. And back when we started, you didn't really hear of many conferences other than maybe a national UFO conference here or there somewhere in the world. But it just seems like, something going on every weekend somewhere that has to do with cryptids, Bigfoot, the paranormal, UFOs. It's grown exponentially, and of course, B.O.R.U. Our core mission is to research and investigate the UFO phenomena, as well as Bigfoot, Dogman, cryptids, ghosts. And, we research and investigate the tri-state area. We don't look to make profit. We want to bring the truth to the public. We feel, and, with all my being, I feel that each and every one of us have the right to know. And there's more to it than what we've been led to believe. We've been lied to all our lives. We are not alone. We haven't been alone. And, they're here. They're going to be here. And they're going to be here a lot longer after we're all gone.
Yeah, great intro. And I agree. I've been following what's happening with the United States government and their congressional hearings. And, we had one in July of 2023 where they brought aboard David Grush. I believe he's from Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area, I believe. But Grush was former military intelligence, claimed that he knows, based on interviewing 40 people, he knows where the bodies are and where the vehicles are, the crashed vehicles. He claims that he'll give up that information, that classified information, to the right people at the right time. That was in 2023. In November of 2024, the government again had another UFO hearing, and they invited Luis Elizondo there, another former military intelligence, and it was the same thing. He knows of things. I'm down here in Florida right now. My wife and I are snowbirds. We spend 6 months in Florida and 6 months in Pennsylvania. While I was down here, I wrote letters to 6 politicians who were a member of these congressional committees: Marco Rubio, Chuck Schumer, Anna Paulina Luna, and the 6 or 7 of them. The only person that responded was Marco Rubio. He sent me a 1.5-page letter, and I was getting ready to have a nice correspondence with him, and then he got tagged to be Secretary of State. So Marco Rubio is out of the UFO game, and now I have to find another contact. But what I was saying was this: David Grush took us to the brink. He talked the talk, but he didn't walk the talk. And I was saying to these politicians, please encourage David Grush and whistleblowers like him to tell us what they know. Because so far, what this is just smoke and mirrors. It's just a dance. It's just a tease. We're not getting the information, the transparency that the government and the politicians claimed that they were giving us. So again, we had a lot of talk in 2023 and 2024, but no conclusions. And me, I'm frustrated and angry because I'm asking for more. I'm going to continue my letter writing campaign. And I would say, Mark, to your listeners out there, your Nightlight listeners, if your listeners have a need to know what the government, the information that the government has, I think they need to start writing letters to their politicians, and they need to be talking to their politicians like MUFON is doing behind closed doors, helping to open up doors, not taking credit for it, not being dramatic, but doing some good work behind the scenes to get the government to open up. So I'm just calling for transparency and disclosure. And again, don't just talk about it, but actually do it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Max. I mean, talk is cheap. And I pray and hope that full disclosure will come in our lifetime. I'm a little skeptical in believing that our government will tell us the full story. I honestly don't think they ever will, but we have to be hopeful that they will give us full disclosure.
Well, we seem to be getting a little bit closer, and at least we're able to narrow it down a bit. With Bigfoot, we have the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film, which may be the holy grail. I mean, I believe it's accurate. 58 seconds of video. 2004, we had the Navy, the USS Nimitz Tic Tac video off the coast of San Diego. And again, this was that thing that went back and forth. The Navy pilots were able to take these videos, and this thing had such rapid turns that they felt that humans would not be able to withstand that G-force. But here's the thing. This, what the Pentagon called UAP, this unidentified aerial phenomenon, went under the sea, and then the Pentagon starts calling it unidentified anomalous phenomenon, because this one was going under the sea. So the Pentagon keeps on changing the nomenclature. They keep on changing the entities that are responsible for tracking these things. And I tell you what, if you fellas have any accountants in your circle, you know, it'd be a good thing to just have those accountants take a look and see where the Defense Department monies are going, because it's not just the CIA and the FBI, but you've got a lot of other alphabet entities there that are working on time control, mind control, remote viewing, you name it, whatever it is, whatever psychological phenomena there is out there that we've been talking about for decades. The government is working on that to find out if there's a military application. And all the story about Montauk in Long Island, it's true. And the epicenter may not be Montauk, but it could be Pittsburgh, or it could be Coatesville, Pennsylvania, or whatever. We don't know, but the government has entities. I'll say one thing just to close that up. I was at a conference last year, an esoteric conference. The guy next to me was from San Francisco. He worked for the government in remote viewing. And I wanted to pick his brain and find out what he knew. And he says, sorry, I can't tell you anything. That's all he told me. So, but I'm sure that I believe Jacques Vallée was dabbling in remote viewing. Jimmy Church told me that. I think Jimmy Church was hanging out with Jacques Vallée for a while, and Jimmy Church was saying that he was involved. Jacques Vallée said that he was a pretty good remote viewer. That was what Jimmy Church told me. So, you know, so there's and about that, I think maybe we all have those abilities. You know, we can tap into those psi abilities, those those psychic abilities that maybe we all have, but those abilities are covered over with our 9-to-5 jobs and the white noise and the commercialism and all the other chaotic stuff that gets in the way. So we just, I mean, if you want to go and develop your innate abilities, you need to go, and I think that's like a full-time job. So
absolutely.
You can do it, but you got to devote your life to that.
Yeah, they remote viewing. That's an interesting phenomena. And, there's definitely something to it. Why else would our government be, utilizing it and working with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not telling us about it too. That's the other thing. So, but then if anybody thinks that's preposterous, I mean, look at what the CIA did with LSD. That MK Ultra project, giving people LSD unannounced. A scientist that took his own life because he thought he was going insane, and President Ford apologizing to his family for what the CIA had done. So it's true. That's one of them that we know about. We know about that they gassed all these sheep in Montana, in the area. There was some of that, like in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah. And again, so they either accidentally or intentionally nuked all these sheep and cattle out there, and then admitted that. So I mean, how much more is going on? And even, don't get me started. Even with the nuclear bomb explosions outside of Vegas, those people in Las Vegas would watch those bombs. I mean, they were testing the bombs there. These tourists were watching those mushroom clouds, back then in the day. So we did a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened that people probably got cancer from, extreme amounts of radiation. And so I think what I'm saying is that the government is doing a lot. They're doing a lot with these paranormal realities to see if there's some sort of a military application, to see if we could get the edge. And you know that China and Russia and probably North Korea are doing the same thing. So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So.
Power, knowledge is power, and for those that possess and harness the capabilities of being able to utilize those types of things, they're going to be superior over everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we believe that we know that the government has been covering up things, just like the Roswell crash of 47. Later, first of all, they said it was a weather balloon. Then they admitted that it was Project Mogul, that it was this large balloon that was going up there to test to see if the USSR was doing any kind of nuclear bomb testing. So that's what Project Mogul was. And there were other ones, but the government kept on zigging and zagging. The government had projects Blue Book, Grunge, and Sign. And it seemed like, and all of these things, it seemed like they were meant to discredit UFO sightings. I mean, people that were witnesses were treated like they were imbeciles. They were treated like they were needy, like they were delusional, like they were mistaking marsh gas or swamp gas or ducks or Venus for a saucer. And it wasn't until J. Allen Hynek, sort of got bitten by the bug. He was one of the most extreme skeptics, but he said that, well, maybe there is something to these witnesses. And Hynek was the first to admit that the scientific community, and as well as himself, were very disrespectful to these witnesses. Instead of taking their testimony, taking it down and believing it, they were skeptical, and they already had their 50 reasons why what these people saw in the sky were not UFOs, we're not anomalous. So, yeah, we know that.
Absolutely. I know, with all my being, earliest sighting that I've had multiple sightings in my lifetime, but the earliest sighting, I was 5 years of age. My whole family was involved. And, I've had multiple sightings over the years. The most significant one was back in 1982. And I lived north of Butler, Pennsylvania. And friends of mine had come over for the evening. He, as well as myself, we were on a layoff status from our employers. So we had, time to get together and either work on our vehicles or do whatever. And him and his wife came over one evening, and my wife and I and he and his wife, we were going to play some cards and play some board games. And I had a CJ5 Jeep that I had done a lot of work on, and my wife had my two daughters in the bathtub, and they were too little to leave unattended. So his wife joined my wife, and buddy of mine, he said, "Hey, take me out and show me what you've done to your Jeep. I'm interested." And went to walk out the back door, stepped down off the porch, and I led the way and went to the first step, and he grabbed me by the back of my arm, and he said, "What in the H is that back there?" And of course, give you a perspective of how the property was laid out. I lived on an 1.5 acre tract of ground. My landlord, he lived quite a distance away from me. You could see the roof of his house from the way the ground was contoured, but his wife trained horses. Mm-hmm. So there were several horse corrals between me and then a big open field and then a tree line. And we're talking probably half a mile away, maybe even a little bit further. And looking up, you could see this bright light that was just slightly down below the treetops. And of course, this is in April, so the trees don't have full foliage on them as of yet. and the wind was blowing like crazy. The sky was pure blue, not a cloud in the sky, and it was getting toward evening, but it was still light enough out that you could see quite well. When you looked up at this thing, you had to shield your eyes. It was tremendously bright. It was almost like as if somebody was standing 6 feet away from you, holding a spotlight directly in your eyes. And first thing I said was, I don't know, Howard. I said, maybe my landlord put up a new dusk to dawn light. And I went ahead and went out around the corner of my garage, and I'm pulling the hood pins on my Jeep. And by that time, he joined me, and I turned to look back up, and this thing was well above the tops of the trees by this time. And you could see it was moving very slowly toward us. And when it was about roughly a 45-degree angle from us looking up, you could see a translucent bubble. And within this bubble, you could clearly see a metallic structure. And we stood there and, just awestruck by what we were looking at. So I went ahead and I reached in and I started the Jeep up. And as soon as I started it up, this thing, it diminished in brightness. It didn't go completely out, but it diminished in brightness. And he said, wow, did you see that? The exact second I started the Jeep up, boom, this thing diminished in brightness. He said, wow. So I reached in, I turned the ignition off, and boom, this thing got real bright again.
Wow, wow.
And I thought, that's strange. So I reached in, I turned the key and started it back up again, and boom, diminished in brightness. Picking up speed as it's coming toward us. And again, I went ahead and I shut the Jeep off, and we stood there and we watched this thing. Well, it was probably about a 60-degree angle looking up from us. You couldn't see the bubble anymore, but you could clearly see a triangular shaped object. And there was a light on the front and one on the corner. On the corners, there was a light on each corner. And they didn't blink like navigation lights on an airplane. They pulsated erratically. And of course, the point of the triangle was coming toward us. And all at once across the back edge, the flat edge, it just looked like the most brilliant cobalt blue blanket of glitter started spewing out of this thing. And you could see little droplets. It literally looks like somebody dropped glitter that was falling toward the ground. At that point, I ran in the house. And of course, I have a photography background.
Okay.
I had been taking video of my kids and, 35 millimeter. I had camera sitting on a dining room table with a full canister of film in it. I had a VHF professional grade camcorder sitting on the table with a fresh magazine in it. Went in, ran around the corner back to the bathroom, and I said, hey, you guys got to come and look at this. Hurry up, hurry up. In hindsight, what do I grab? I grab a pair of binoculars and a telescope. I go flying back out the door. And of course, my wife says, Dan, I can't leave the girls alone. Well, then Howard's wife, Terry, she said, well, I'll come and look. Flew out the door, threw the binoculars to Howard. And I'm standing there with this big, long telescope trying to zoom in on this thing. And I finally realized it's futile. I threw the telescope down on the ground, grabbed the binoculars, not knowing that Howard put the strap over his neck. I almost took his head off. In any event, by this time, you're standing looking directly up at this thing, and it stops. And the lights on the bottom, they're just pulsating like crazy. And between the point light and the back two lights, you could see the craft started to open up on the right and left side. And you saw a crescent-shaped opening and see it opening into a full circle. Now you're looking up inside the craft. And these two highly, highly metallic spheres dropped down out simultaneously, and they bobbed up and down real slow as those openings closed. Looking at the one on the right, it started to spin. And when it started to spin, sparks flew out from the center of it.
Man.
I turned to look to see what the one on the left was doing, and in the blink of an eye, one of those spheres, one shot north, one shot south. The triangle with the lights on the bottom just absolutely went berserk. It did a sharp zigzag to the left, sharp zigzag back to the right, and boom, in the blink of an eye, shot straight up in the air till it was gone. Absolutely no sound whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay.
Howard's wife was pregnant with carrying twins, and consequently, she miscarried. And a day or two after this happened, our eyes were all bloodshot. It looked like we were sunburnt, and I guess low level radiation is what they said.
Right. Amazing. How long did this sighting take? Any idea how long it was?
From start to finish, I'm going to say probably 20 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid. It reminds me of J. Allen Hynek's High Strangeness. You know, you have all these elements of high strangeness that denotes there's something significant here. You know, the red eyes, you know, the watching the orb move, you know, the car, how it's responding to your car. I mean,
the electronics.
Yeah.
The what?
Yeah, the interaction between the electronics of the car and that seems to be a pattern.
The lack of sound seems to be something that we hear with this a lot. So what I'm saying is that it's not just one thing, but there's several things going on that, you know, I think this is pretty impressive to me. So, so what did you think? I mean, what's your conclusion?
Well, you know, a couple of days after this happened, I had gone over to Howard's house, and you know, first thing I said was, well, you know, wow, what do you think it was? What do you think it was? Now I'm former military. I was in the United States Navy, stationed aboard the USS America.
Okay.
I was around all kind of aircraft, and I know with all of my being that what we were looking at was not ours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Howard, he was very, very skittish, and I said, you know, can I use your phone, Howard? And he said, yeah, go ahead. Well, I called into our local paper, the Butler Eagle, told him who I was, and I said, by chance, have you guys received any UFO reports in the last couple of days? And the woman said, can you hold on? And I said, yeah. And some guy came to the phone, and he said, your name is Daniel? And I said, that's correct. And he said, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at a friend's house in West Sunbury. And he said, well, where did this take place at? And I told him, and he said, well, can I meet you there? I want to come out and talk to you. Now, I'm driving a CJ5 Jeep. And if anybody is familiar with those, you know, they have a rollover history. The road that I would have to take to get home was called Route 138. And it's like a roller coaster, up and down, and sharp hairpin turns to the right, sharp hairpin turns to the left. You don't drive across that road very fast. So I said, Howard, I said, come on. He said, I don't want no part of it. Just leave me out of it. Don't even give him my name. I jumped in my Jeep and I drove as fast as humanly possible across that road. Now, this guy's coming from the Butler Eagle out to my house, which is 15 miles from downtown Butler. I pulled into my driveway and that guy's sitting there waiting for me.
Wow.
So he had to have flown to get there. This is like 11 o'clock in the morning. My wife came home 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and this reporter is still there. And I actually said, well, you know, would you like to stay for dinner? So we actually, you know, had him for dinner. He had me draw a depiction of what I saw.
And how soon after the sighting did he meet with you?
This would have been 4 days after the sighting.
Okay. And how were your eyes at that point?
they looked like cherries. I mean, the whites were all bloodshot. And
Oh, so the eyes stayed that way for a couple of days.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. And, it just, the spheres that came down out of that thing were, the Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
They were probably 2 times the size of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Okay.
Is the best way I can describe them. The triangular shaped object, if you were to take a pull rack off a table and hold it at arm's length and look up at it, that's about how big this triangle would have been in perspective.
Well, then it's bigger than Kecksburg. Kecksburg was supposed to be about the size of a VW.
Is it more of like the Phoenix Lights case?
Well, the Phoenix Lights, that object was reported. I'm trying to think of the name of the former mayor, but he stated that thing was over a mile wide.
Yeah.
Okay, it may not have been as big as Phoenix, but a much larger craft than Kecksburg.
Absolutely. And I know over the years, I've spoke at different conferences and different events. And, I've noticed people out in the audience, they're writing stuff down on a clipboard or tablet. And after my presentation, I've had several times where they would come up and introduce themselves to me. A couple of them were physicists.
Oh, wow.
And they said that blanket of cobalt blue was probably plasma. And of course, there are many reports that UFOs, that part of their propulsion system is through plasma. So,
Or I heard there was a theory too that they were actually made of plasma. That they're
yes, that too.
Another one. Yeah. Dan, I had something I wanted to share with you, if I may.
Sure.
Okay, I'm a former Vietnam veteran, and I served aboard the USS Constellation.
Oh,
CVA 64. So
thank you for your service.
Thank you. But even better, I was a radarman.
Oh, okay.
And in my book, Flying Saucer Esoteric, The Altered States of UFOlogy, and I'm hoping that the Pennsylvania MUFON director would utilize my book as a reference book. I'm not sure who that is, but
don't quote me. I think his name's Fred Saluga.
Okay, I need to chase him down and talk to him about the law about Flying Saucer Esoteric. But in my book, in the introduction, it's called "I Have Seen the Saucers," and let me just read one paragraph. As a radarman serving aboard the aircraft carrier USS Constellation, CVA 64, during the Vietnam conflict, I saw numerous unidentified flying objects we called bogies. They were solid, tangible, and maneuverable contacts we documented in our ship's logbooks as UFOs and included their range and bearings. And then we were told, keep your mouth shut. The next day, those logbooks would disappear, replaced by new ones. So I know that there were times when I would go through these logbooks and take a look at all of the UFO sightings that were there. We saw them numerous times, and again, faster and more maneuverable than anything we had or the USSR had. We don't know what they were, but they were anomalous, and we put them down as UFOs. So again, the same thing is happening today. This is back during. So things haven't changed much, but again, most of us that were in NAM, I believe, were under the age of 20. So we were pretty law-abiding at the time. We were very loyal. We took instruction well, until we started to protest and rebel. But but that's what we did. But we were told, don't talk about this. And when I go to my Navy reunions, we talk about it all. So.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the USS Nimitz incident. The task force out off the West Coast, and our F-16 pilots they're flying at Mach, and these Tic Tacs are flying circles around our F-16s. They outmaneuvered us, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything we have that can do that. You know, and again, they were observed going in and out of the water. So,
well, here's the thing. The numbers I've seen is 3%. They're claiming, the government, you know, the authorities, that 3% of what we see are anomalous. You know, and again, we don't know if it's ours, theirs, or extraterrestrial, or like Jacques Vallée says, you know, I mean, that extraterrestrial hypothesis seems a little bit nonsensical. You know, I mean, traveling trillions and trillions of light years to get, you know, here. You know, and he talks about the interdimensional theory, that it's a lot easier to have a bridge or a wormhole through the space-time continuum to get from here to there. So, I mean, that's the theory that I believe in. And even in my book on the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs, and I see similarities where I see commonality. And I think both of them are, you know, utilize interdimensional pathways. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. So
I believe that, you know, and of course, my interest first and foremost, UFOs and aliens. But you know, through my involvement in being the founder and the director of the Butler organization for research of the unexplained, you know, it's broadened my horizons into Bigfoot and Dogman and Mothman and the reports that we get. People report a UFO sighting followed by a Bigfoot sighting followed by a UFO sighting. They're numbered in the hundreds. You know, I've actually had reports where people claim they saw Bigfoot, and they saw the Bigfoot go into a crouched position, put its hands up in front of its face, and dematerialize.
Wow.
Do these beings or these Bigfoot have the capability of slipping in and out of our dimension at will? I believe they do. I believe they do. And of course, UFOs traveling, you know, billions and billions and billions of miles, going from point A to point B. The shortest route is to go through a so-called wormhole.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was possible. Einstein-Rosen's theory. Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's some sort of a paranormal ability. You know, people talk about Bigfoot not walking but gliding, that they have rapid transport or bilocation, that you see them in front of you, then they're behind you. But when I first heard about this Bigfoot UFO connection, I just thought, this is crazy. This is nonsense. There's hundreds of sightings, and we're fortunate in Western Pennsylvania that we have Stan Gordon there, because Stan Gordon is pretty much like the guy that documents these things. And I'll give you an example. I'm in northeastern Pennsylvania, and a couple of years ago, my neighbor, family man, churchgoer, professional guy, has his head on straight. He told me that he saw two Bigfoot up in Luzerne County, near our hometown. We live in a little mountain community called Mackinac, and he saw not one but two Bigfoot, a black one and a cinnamon one. I asked him questions at length, and then I did it again another day. But these creatures just looked at him like they were curious, and then they walked away bipedally, you know, like humans. They walked away. And what I did was I called Stan Gordon, and I called Tim Renner. I believe I called Eric Altman, but I gave them the story. Stan took the story, called my neighbor, and then he filed it, and he used my name as the, I don't know, the witness or whatever that was. But anyway, when the Pennsylvania State Police get these reports about Bigfoot or UFOs, they say, well, call Stan Gordon, and Stan documents these. And here's the thing. they're kind of predictable and boring in the sense that a typical notation might be that Farmer Brown and Mrs. Brown went out to the barn at 6 o'clock at night to milk the cow, and they saw the orb and the creature, or they saw the creature, coming out of the orb, things like that. So Stan has documented numerous accounts of Bigfoot and the flying saucers, and a lot of them are a bit the same. That people are seeing these things, regular people, during the daytime hours, and so we're fortunate. We don't have one group or organization that collects all this information, but Stan's been doing a pretty good job for us in not just in Chestnut Ridge, but in Western PA. So,
Max, since you just brought up Western Pennsylvania, what do you to attribute our region as a hotspot? Is it the mountains, rivers, swamps?
Well, it's all of that and then more. When you talk about the paranormal, you can't explain it. It's outside of the realm of science, and so we really don't know. I mean, some of these things may have a scientific explanation, but right now we don't know. So we call it paranormal or supernatural. But they talk about Chestnut Ridge. They talk about a 3-county area from Pittsburgh down to West Virginia, that 100-mile stretch with a lot of mountains and the Laurel Highlands and all that. But I contend that it's bigger than those 3 counties. We know that Greene County, Kevin Paul writes about Greene County and all the paranormal things that happen there. So there's 4. And I contend Butler, Pennsylvania, with all of the things that have happened there, including the epicenter for Night of the Living Dead. Don't discount that. That was huge. And George Romero and Pittsburgh. So the whole area, your whole area, is just replete with paranormal, whatever. You're like the twilight zone of the paranormal. The Western Pennsylvania is crazy. And when you talk about Bigfoot, they say California and Washington are number 1 and number 2, and then number 3 is either Pennsylvania or Florida. Florida with the skunk ape and the Mayaka ape and the Barton booger. I mean, God, there's like a ton of them. But in Pennsylvania, being number 3, a lot of this is because of the weirdness in Western Pennsylvania. And just one thing for the good of the order, I write for Fate magazine, and the current issue of Fate magazine has my article on Chestnut Ridge. So get a chance, check that out. But anyway, you folks that live there are just like, so it's just wonderful because you're living in that weirdness. You're talking about it. And Daniel, I don't know how your conferences can survive because there's so much competition there. I mean, like every weekend there's another Bigfoot camp out or whatever. I mean, how are you able to go and compete with? I mean, the competition is fierce.
Well, like I stated earlier in the podcast here, when we started out, these weekend campouts or these conferences were basically non-existent. You have a gentleman by the name of Bill Rigby.
Yep.
He came to 3 years ago. He came to our conference for the first time, and he has basically copied everything that ours is and started his own conferences. And he's been having a fantastic turnout at all of his conferences.
Yeah.
As far as the competition, it's out there, but you just have to take and the interest is out there also. You just have to captivate the the audience, so to speak, and keep bringing them new information. And like I said, our core mission is to bring the truth to the public. We don't do this for profit. We don't do it for notoriety. I firmly believe that we have the right to know, and that's the reason why I do this.
Yeah. I had a chance to attend the Ocala Bigfoot Expo on this past Saturday on April the 5th, and there were a lot of people there, and I was really pleased because some of them had heard of me on podcast. So anyway, that was kind of neat, and but very supportive, very nice people. The paranormal community, I think, for the most part, are very altruistic, very helpful, and you have some people that are a little bit too energized, and with some of their ideas and all. But I think for the most part, I've been doing this since 2016, and it's only 9 years, and that's when I stumbled into the paranormal. I'm a former rock journalist, and again, I wasn't looking for the paranormal, but it pretty much found me, and and that's my story. But I enjoy being a paranormal author and researching, and especially writing about our area, whether it's Chestnut Ridge or the coal regions of northeastern Pennsylvania or in western Pennsylvania. And one reason that I do this is because I was really angry that most of the paranormal books about Pennsylvania are about Gettysburg or Lancaster. It's either about the lost spirits in Gettysburg or the hex signs and the white witches in Lancaster. And I said, wait a second, Western Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Northeast are just replete with superstitions that were brought over by all the people from Europe. They brought their superstitions with them. So, and Pittsburgh's just a hotbed of that, with all of that stuff. So.
Have you ever received, or have you ever gotten any reports from up around the Kinzu Dam area?
I've heard about that. Yeah, I think I might have. I have something in the Kinzu Dam in my book. I think they were looking for Bigfoot there, and they were using whale sound. Things that they had there, and what is that a hotbed for sightings?
Yeah, I'll tell you. In the beginning, I was skeptical. I've got a friend of mine that lives up there, and I've been up there multiple times. 2-3 nights, and go up and stay for 2-3 nights, or go up and stay for a weekend, and he has taken me into different areas that he has had personal experiences, and they have different names for different areas up there. There's Red Rock and Red Ridge and Red Bridge, and but in any event, we did an overnighter, and they have some of those areas up there. They got rocks that are as big as a 3-story house.
Wow.
Apparently, moved in during the glacier era, but there was a big rock that probably from the ground to the top of it, 12 feet, and perfectly flat, except it just slightly angled. And he said, we're going to sleep up there tonight. That way we're not down on the ground. And I said, that's fine with me. So we climbed up there, and, we put our sleeping blankets down, and our picnic cooler was up there, and, went to bed and sound asleep. And I think it was just before daylight. You could just start to see shadows. And he reached over and he shook me. And I looked up, and he, motioning for me to be quiet. And I was more awake and realizing what was going on. And you could feel, thump, thump, thump. You could not only could you hear it, but you could feel it. And my eyes must have got that big around, and I looked at Denny, and again he goes, shh. And he reached over, and he kind of jabbed me, and he's pointing down toward the bottom of this rock. And you could see just the tops of the heads of these two Bigfoot creatures. And I assume, there was a juvenile and a female.
Mm-hmm.
Watched the heads bob, and they went around the bottom of this rock and over toward the edge of the woods. And you could see them, and clearly when they went into the woods, you could hear, crashing the trees and stuff. And then he said, I think we need to go to the car and get in the car and stay till it's daylight. So we waited a few minutes, and we climbed down off of that rock, and we started to hightail it to the car. And then he grabbed me, almost pulled me backwards, and I stopped, and he turned, and he's pointing, he's look. There was a Bigfoot. I've got goosebumps. I wish you could see them, but
yeah,
there's a Bigfoot creature. It's reaching up, had the lid of the picnic cooler open, and it's foraging around through that cooler, and it never took its eyes off us. It's watching us.
Mm-hmm.
And it got an apple, and it brought the apple down, and it held it like this. Never took its eyes off of us. It sidestepped, went around the bottom of the rock, and then disappeared into the woods. We ran back to the car. We got in the car, locked the doors, and we sat there until it was well daylight.
Mm-hmm. What time of day did you see?
When this happened, I'm going to say it was probably 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so there was good light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we went back to retrieve our, sleeping bags and our picnic cooler. Now, like I said, we measured it from the ground to the top of this rock is 12 feet. There were an array of different size rocks that were piled up on top of one another. And I said to Denny, what is this? Where did this come from? And he said, well, it's a sign of a gift. They're gifting us.
Yeah. Okay.
Was that the way they held their hands over the apple? Was that
I
some
just
kind of
I just
gesture?
assumed I just assumed that it was bound to determine it was going to take that apple. After that, you can't tell me there is no such thing as Bigfoot.
How tall did you estimate the creature, and what color fur did it have?
It had a dark, like brownish gray, I guess you could say, but it was every bit of 11 foot tall. Okay. Every bit of it. Wow. It was huge. I'll tell you what. It just like I said, when I think of it, I get goosebumps on top of goosebumps. I mean, it just totally.
And what was your emotion when you saw it?
Blown away. I just I thought to myself, man, if it wanted to have us for dinner, there was no way I was going to get back to the car. And even at that, is that car going to protect us? This thing was enormous.
Yeah. Bigfoot doesn't seem to be aggressive. I mean, from the stories I'm hearing, it's sort of curious. It'll look at us, watch us, and then walk away.
Yeah.
I think there was one report by Teddy Roosevelt, might have taken place in Montana, and he was talking about a Bigfoot that either attacked somebody or killed somebody. But there was an article in the New York Times about the existence of Bigfoot, and the reporter said that in report after report, Bigfoot and docile, and then they'll walk away, but nothing dramatic, other than, when you do smell a Bigfoot, was there a stench there? Did you smell?
Yeah. I mean, it just, you wanted to throw up. I mean, okay. It was just, the stench was just absolutely,
And there was another thing too about Bigfoot sightings, that not just the smell, but also like a feeling of nausea. Something about, what did they call that? Like the electricity. There was something that was really weird when you see one. There's another connection. I'm not real familiar with that, but I had heard about that.
Well, I know, all sound stopped. Like you're opening your mouth like you're trying to pop your ears. It was almost like as if you were in a vacuum.
Okay.
It was like the wind stopped. You couldn't hear, crickets or birds, or you couldn't hear anything. It was just absolute dead silence. And the only way that I can really describe it would be like as if you were in a vacuum. It's the only way I can explain it.
Dan,
that's what that sounds like. That's not a flesh and blood thing. And where's the conversation? Now, I know a lot of the Sasquatch lookers are just looking for flesh and blood. Does that camp also allow for interdimensional theories, or something other than flesh and blood?
Absolutely. Denny, he will be at the conference. He's coming as a vendor, and I'll have to hook you up with him.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
He can tell you some stuff that'll just knock your socks off. But he has experienced portals up in the Kinzu Dam area. He actually, and it would be best to have the story come directly from him.
Yeah.
But everything from UFO sightings to, supposedly a prehistoric type creature running around up there, having portals open and close. But he has a relative that was on the sheriff's department up there, and cell phone service is very, very spotty up there. And Denny told his wife, hey, I'm going up to this area. I'll call you when I'm on my way home. And he didn't check in with her at the time that he told her he would. And, getting later and later and later. And she called, and they launched a manhunt looking for Denny. And they finally found him. And the guy told him, they said, Denny, you shouldn't be out here, especially after dark. And I'm going to tell you this, and I'm only going to tell you this one time. The next time we get a phone call, nobody is going to come looking for you till daylight. We don't come into this area after dark. And he said to Denny, what are you carrying? And Denny said, what do you mean, what am I carrying? What are you packing? Well, nothing. Why? Don't come back into this area unless you've got something big enough to drop an elephant.
Wow. Man. And who was saying that?
Whoever this relative of his is that was on the sheriff's department.
Okay. Well,
but that's a strange place. For as many times as I've gone up there, I've come home with more questions than answers.
And Dan, with your reference to Danny being a vendor, who are some of the other speakers that you'll be having?
We have Stan Gordon.
Oh, okay.
We have James Krug, MAXIM FUREK, and then we have
Kevin Paul.
Thank you. Yep. And the Psychic Vincent sisters.
Yeah, and who are they? I want to see them.
They're a local team. They've worked with law enforcement on helping them solve some cases that were, I guess pretty much unsolvable, and they helped them come to a conclusion on these cases.
Okay.
we're bringing them back. They've spoke once before, twice before, and
Yeah.
we're bringing them back by popular demand. We've had a
Oh,
lot of
cool.
people requesting
very
we bring them back.
Okay. And will we be able to hear the speakers? You know.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, so is everything sort of centrally located? I mean, the speakers and the vendors?
We rent two
Yeah.
halls. We have a back hall, or what I call a back hall, and we kind of reserve that if somebody has a specific request. You know, a lot of people say, well, we want to be in the back hall. But for like the tarot card readers, the palm readers, it's a lot quieter back there, so they can conduct business if they choose while the guest speakers are on stage. And then we have the main hall. The tables outline the perimeter of the walls, and then the seating is in the center, and then they've got a huge stage, and we put up a big projector. But yeah, you'll be able to hear all the guest speakers quite well.
Okay, that'll be great. Okay, and those tables are what? How?
8 foot. They're standard 8-foot banquet table.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And we cover and skirt them.
Okay.
You know, the vendors, they're responsible for their personal effects, their merchandise. Nothing is allowed to be attached to any of the walls. It all has to be freestanding or on the table. And they're responsible to remove their merchandise. And then, you know, we unskirt the table and the tabletops at the end of the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dan, did you still want me to do your B.O.R.U modeling on the runway?
Sure.
By the door. Okay, I'm sure that'll get even more people there.
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's coming up really soon, so we'll be leaving Florida, driving up to 77, West Virginia, and Pittsburgh and Butler. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got to make your hotel arrangements. I'm going to try to do it here at the end of the week. And,
okay, good.
You know, I can get all that out to you. You prefer a non-smoking room?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think most hotels are non-smoking now, but you know, just want to make sure we accommodate you and
yeah. And if there's a room with that doesn't allow pets, that would be good too.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be. I think it's there's going to be a lot of people there, and
yeah. Dan produces a nice conference.
Well, not perfect, but I try.
Yeah,
I'm pleased with it, and you know, people can get. There's a there you go. It's all blurred again. But that's the 15th year. What was it? 2022. You do have handouts, you know, where people can learn a little bit more about the area, how to video record sightings. You have helpful materials there. Plus, all the vendors are. At least the ones I've spoken to are very knowledgeable. You have terrific speakers. I mean, so much of your story seems like there are elements, you know, going back to the Betty and Barney case, and you've had Kathleen Martin as a speaker a few years ago, and you know. She's just really one of the best speakers on this kind of topic.
Mm-hmm. Was that Betty Hill's relative?
Niece.
Yeah, her niece, Kathleen Martin.
Yeah, and there was a book with Stanton Friedman too. I think they collaborated on a book.
That's correct.
So, several of them.
Okay. Yeah, when I was investigating the Philadelphia experiment, I contacted Stanton Friedman, and he gave me some information. And I'll tell you what, he was a great guy. Did a lot of work and research, and went unrecognized, especially with the Roswell incident. William Moore. I mean, Stanton Friedman did so much work on that and didn't get the credit that he deserved. So,
yeah, it's all coming together. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably be laid up for a day or two afterwards because don't get old, and it takes a lot out of me. I've had people, contact me and say, "Oh, hey, why don't you do this twice a year? Why don't you do this, or why don't you do it like an all weekend event?" And one day is all the more I can handle.
Yeah, and a lot of people can only handle one day. I mean, just with expenses and because we have but I was at the Johnstown, the inaugural Johnstown Bigfoot event, and that was kind of nice. That was, I think, 2 years ago, and they're doing that again. But it's great to be coming out to Western Pennsylvania because most of the stuff I do is in northeastern Pennsylvania or in the Lancaster area. So.
Well, it's going to be a pleasure to have you for sure.
Okay. I know it's little past 8 o'clock. Do you want to cover anything else? You had some work you had to wrap up. I don't want to keep you too late, but are there any other points you wanted to bring up before we wrap up the show? We can just keep going if you wanted to. I just wanted to give you the option.
Yeah. Is I want to thank you for having me on the program, and again, I'm looking forward to being in Butler at the Paranormal conference on April the 26th. But also, for your listeners, my name is MAXIM FUREK. I'm a paranormal author, and my website is www.maximfurek.com. My latest book is The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, but also I highly recommend Co-Region Hoodoo, which is, I think, one of the best comprehensive books about the Pennsylvania paranormal, starting with Night of the Living Dead that was shot there in Butler County. So it's a great book, and I'm going to have copies of Co-Region Hoodoo out when I go to the conference. But at any rate, if anybody happens to purchase any of my books, please consider leaving a review on Amazon or Goodreads. That means a lot to us as authors. So thanks for listening. I hope that this was informative and entertaining. So thanks so much. Thank you, Barbara DeLong, for having me on.
Okay.
Well, Maxim, it's a pleasure meeting you. Can't wait to actually meet you in person. And Mark, thank you so very much. Just a true pleasure to be on your podcast. And we could go on for hours. I mean, I don't even think we scratched the surface, but maybe that's something for another podcast on down the road.
Yeah, that you're always welcome.
Daniel, maybe even one just specifically on UFOs. That'd be fun.
No, we could do that. We also have. It didn't even touch on it, but we deemed it the Shakura gargoyle.
Okay.
You can do a Google search, Shakura gargoyle, and Stan Gordon. He took the initial report on that. It happened back in 2011, and I've done over 75. Have taken over 75 reports and personally interviewed and researched eyewitnesses, and out of all the research that I've done, this one probably, I don't want to say scare, but this one freaks me out the most. And did you ever see the movie Jeepers Creepers?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Parts 1, 2, and 3, yeah.
The first one was the best, but just eyewitness descriptions, and that's what comes to mind, from eyewitness descriptions of this creature. And the initial sighting it happened actually no more than a half hour's drive from my home here. And I was working with a guy up in Canada that is writing a book, but this thing has been seen Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all over the country. And that's something that maybe a future podcast we can talk about a little bit more in depth.
Okay. I made a note of it. So, do you want to wrap there, and we'll pick it up on another podcast?
That sounds good. I'd love to do another one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Me
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do that. You just said probably an hour's just fine for tonight, and we've actually gone about 70 minutes, and I'm very I know you need to get to wrapping up things as the conference approaches, but I'm glad to keep the conversation going, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers really enjoyed this topic. So we'll do it again.
Sounds good. And
Yeah.
before we go, I have to tell you, you look good in that shirt.
That's a compliment, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I'll have it on in a couple weeks, so it's
Freshly laundered, though, right?
yeah.
Okay, that'll be good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, and this will be fun. And
Yeah.
And the last, thanks for what you do to promote and educate about the paranormal community. This is important, that we're viewed with respect, and what you guys do is helping with that, to articulate this in the King's English, and to put two sentences together and to uplift the genre, because there's too many people that are just sort of dumbing it down. And I appreciate your approach, both of you. So thanks for doing that. And let's continue to make our genre respectable to everybody, not just the scientific community, but the public. So
Amen.
that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, guys. Stay safe. God bless. And until next time.
All right.
See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay.